Good morning, everybody. It's the Wifey Wake Up No Makeup podcast. And today I have a very special topic. It's very special because it was a big aha in my life. And as you may have seen, this episode is called Sticks, Stones, and Sarcasm because they all can break you in some way, physical or otherwise. And do not be fooled. So many of you have probably heard since childhood, right? When you were a child, sticks and stones may break my bones, but your words can never hurt me, or something really similar to that. And it was probably something that your parents taught you when you came home crying because a neighbor kid, obviously I'm sharing my story, right? A neighbor kid said something that hurt your feelings. And so you learned this phrase as like a mantra, right? Your words can never hurt me. But we all know if we've lived life long enough that there is a point, there is a time, there is an instance where the words really do hurt. And a lot of the times it's because you can actually really tell that the person really meant to cause harm. But in sarcasm, it's disguised as humor. And so part of you knows that there's kind of a truth to this and that they're actually trying to hurt you, but it's disguised as humor and witty banter, right? And so, did I say witty? I think I said witty. I didn't want to say witty banter. And so that, oh, it's all okay. And this may be news to some of you. This was news to me. Actually, I knew the word sarcasm when my husband brought this to my attention. So I was in my early 20s at the time. And my family of origin used sarcasm a lot. Like it was almost the mode of communication. And my husband brought it to my attention in a very constructive way. So he recognized it, right? And I couldn't recognize it. I couldn't understand it. I had to have him give me examples and point out what was the sarcasm and even explain, well, what's so wrong with that? And thankfully, he really, with a lot of awareness, patience, and love, he explained that, it seems like fun, right? And maybe you're in a verbal sparring match and it seems like you're having fun, but really underneath it is the truth. A lot of times people will use sarcasm to relay the actual truth, but in a way that is hurtful. And the recipient is supposed to just kind of laugh it off, right? Because it's meant to be a joke. Excuse me for a moment. And so it is like a sparring match, right? In a sparring match, you're training, right? And you're meant to take the jabs and shake them off, right? You're learning. But this is not, it's perceived as a sport. Sarcasm is perceived as a sport, but it actually is very hurtful. So I'm going to read the definition because for me, when I read these definitions, it really makes it clear that, wow, I really didn't understand, or I use words, but maybe not always understand what exactly they mean. So for those of you who may have grown up or still think that sarcasm is just like a verbal sparring match, there's more to it. Sarcasm, as defined by Merriam-Webster, is a sharp and often satirical or ironic utterance designed to cut or give pain. Designed to cut or give pain. And anyone who's participated in sarcasm knows that, right? It is, if you really just assess it for what it is, yes, it's designed to cut or give pain. And then you get more points for the more cutting and painful the comment can be. But the more witty and disguised the cut and the pain, the better, right? So a second definition, it's a mode of satirical wit depending for its effect on bitter, caustic, and often ironic language that is usually directed against an individual. And then 2B definition is just simply the use of language of sarcasm. So in definition 1, designed to cut or give pain, and 2, a mode of satirical wit depending for its effect on bitter, caustic, and often ironic language that is usually directed against an individual. Boy, when my husband pointed this out, it was such an eye-opener. And like any kind of situation that you grow up in, it can be hard to identify at first. But once I did start identifying it, it was such an eye-opener. And what I vowed was that I would do my best to identify when I was going to be sarcastic, right? To get it before it came out my mouth, because it was so automatic. It was rewarded. And the interesting thing about sarcasm is that if it does exist within a family dynamic, it usually happens within a group, because it's like a group event, right? And if someone gets a good sarcastic remark in against someone or to someone, they get more points by how many oohs and ahs they get by how good the jab was, right? So but boy, the following family get-togethers were so different after that. And anytime I got together with people, I was just observing, like, does this family use sarcasm? Does this couple use sarcasm? And it was so enlightening. And what I've noticed since is that I would say the couples that have kind of a calmer, not on edge kind of relationship, they're just like comfortable with each other. They actually act loving towards each other. It doesn't look like one or the other is kind of sitting on pins and needles. There isn't like a layer of ha 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 laughing in between them. Are the couples that don't use sarcasm. And it actually feels like they can actually connect. And I'm speaking from experience too, since, and also now having relationships with people that don't have that dynamic. I feel like I can actually connect with them better, because there isn't that uneasy in between energy. And if that doesn't sound familiar, just take some time to observe. It's really, really fascinating. And what I also noticed is, since then, I noticed the family members that chronically use sarcasm and like, how are their relationship dynamics? And I noticed there are some family members, and I've talked with them since, who deliberately don't use that form of communication. And their relationships are much calmer, at ease, really wholesome might be another word to describe that. And wow, this was such a big aha in my life. And I'll tell you, I really still have to watch myself. And I think what's so tricky about, once you get accustomed to being sarcastic, is it's probably like a dopamine response or something, like when you are at a slot machine and you win a little something, because it's those little zingers, right? That's also another way of paraphrasing what is sarcasm. If it's a zinger, it gives you kind of like that reward, like, oh, I did it. Oh, that was a good one. And you have to really like break yourself from that. So I was looking up examples, because like anything in life where you're trying to learn and relearn something, it can be challenging to really identify the true example of it. So I looked up a few examples online, and granted, these are kind of weak examples because they're very general. Usually a sarcastic remark or a zinger is best when it's very personal, and that means that it can dig and cut deeper, right? So these are kind of weak ones, general ones, but they'll give you an idea. And then I have a good one to share, actually.
That I did that I'm not too proud of. So,
my dictate was on. Okay, there we go. Here are a few that I found on the internet. Tell me something I don't know. So notice the tone of voice. Of course, the tone of voice goes along with it as well. Yeah, because that's never happened. Here's another one. You've been so helpful. And this last one, really, Sherlock? And of course, that last one has a variation of it, which I think many of us know as well, which is even more digging, right? So like I said, those are really general ones. But here's a good one I'm not so proud of, but I was trying to come up with an actual example. because like I said, those are so general, but they need to be specific. So I'm telling you, I'm not proud of this one. This one happened a couple years ago and it slipped through. So I'm still working on this. So we were at, it was a business meeting, and we were with a bunch of guys, machinists, but not operators, but actual machinists who take prints and actually make the parts. So they're not just operating machines, and a couple engineers. So what I'm getting at is knowledgeable guys, right? Guys who know how to make stuff and do stuff with their hands. So we were coming out of the restaurant. Yeah, I think it was coming out of the restaurant, and a number of them had come. They all had come in from out of town and had a rental car, and it was some obscure kind of foreign brand that, different makes have very different locations for the handles, the buttons, the latches, and all that kind of stuff. And they were commenting how they had such a hard time finding how to open the hatch of the vehicle. Okay, I'm going to tell you this, but I'm not so proud of this. It was actually a very good sarcastic remark, which makes it so tricky, but very not appropriate. So I said, well, if there were some handy guys, mechanical guys in the bunch, maybe you could find it. Great as far as sarcasm, because it was true. The truth, the hidden truth is they were all very mechanical, to the degree that they weren't just pushing buttons at their jobs. They were actually designing and making stuff. But the thing is, the zinger, of course, was, here I'm explaining the sarcasm, was that they couldn't find the latch, right? And so it's like, shows how good you are, right? Basically, might as well just said, shows how good you are. But the thing about sarcasm is that there's like a hidden compliment, like you guys are actually mechanical, but there's a zinger in there. And so it's this, it's tough to get out of that mode. And so the reason I vowed to stop doing that one obviously slipped out, but especially in my relationship with my husband, is that, and this is what really opened my eyes. He said, the thing about sarcasm is that there is the thread of truth. And it's not that the truth is bad, but it's that sarcasm has that zinger component, which has a hurtful component to it. And so it's a game that everybody but no one wants to play. It's like you're thrown into the sparring ring, and it's just like traumatic brain injury, right? Even just those little jabs, they build up over time. And so it might not take one knockout to cause that brain injury, but those smaller brain injuries, I'm using the metaphor here, right? That it's like the emotional blows that build up over time and eventually show up as well. And it's really deceptive to think that, going back to the phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, but your words will never hurt me. It's a good mantra, but the truth is that the tongue can be sharper than any knife, and it can have effects that are, and I'm not exaggerating, that are more devastating than a knife. And to explain that a little bit more, physical harm is very obvious, but emotional abuse is covert. It's hard to identify and hard to see, so it can linger longer. It's like a cancer that has been growing and metastasizing, and eventually takes over the body. A cut is very obvious, right? A physical cut is very obvious, but those emotional digs can build and builds to have a bigger effect over time and throughout the generations as well. So I think I covered everything that I wanted to. And if you are willing, I would love to hear some other examples of maybe some other people's sarcastic remarks, because not to embarrass anyone, which of course you wouldn't do if it was too embarrassing, and not to like make things salacious or anything, but really it can be really hard to identify what is sarcasm when you're doing it. When you're in that dynamic, it can be very difficult to identify. And so if you're willing, please do share, and I'll share more. I'll add some more in the comments if I remember them as well, to help others be able to identify what truly is sarcasm. Maybe if you were even on the receiving end, how did it make you feel on the receiving end? Especially if you're a person that comes from a family that is not accustomed to using sarcasm, it can sound very foreign and actually feel like it should feel to a person who did not grow up around that. And that would be really interesting too, is to hear from you, if that's you, how it does affect you, and probably how strange it feels to be in such an environment. And take a vow along with me to especially not use sarcasm among those people that you say that you love, and only convey truthful emotions, truthful feelings. And if those are hard and harsh, to do so in a loving way, in a way that is lovingly, can be hopefully lovingly received by the other person. And yeah, make sure if this came to mind, if someone else came to mind, maybe you're having a discussion with a friend about something like this, but you weren't maybe able to pinpoint it, send it to them. And I think this is what we were talking about the other day, or maybe this is what you're describing. I think we have words for it. That can be so helpful. And make sure to like, subscribe, share with those you think that this could be very helpful for. And guys, I'm going to put out the request again. If you find this information helpful, something that you wish more women knew in your life, make sure to like, subscribe, share as well, because it's your support that can help us keep getting this information out. I know I wish I had had this information sooner, and it would not only make my married life a lot smoother, but the other relationships in my life. So thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.